हर पीर से जुमेरात अपने पसंदीदा शो लाइव विद आदिल शाहजेब को यूट्यूब पर देखने के लिए डॉन न्यूज के ऑफिशियल यूट्यूब चैनल पर आएं और सब्सक्राइब करके बेल आइकॉन भी प्रेस करें। जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, लाइव विद आदिल शाहजेब के साथ काबुल से शहर नौ से मैं हूं आपका मेज़बान। जलालाबाद का हमने आपको सारा सब कुछ दिखाया, लोगों से भी बात की, 2 दिन वहाँ पे गुजारे। फिर जलालाबाद से काबुल तक के सफ़र में क्या हुआ उसको हम इंशाल्लाह कल आपके साथ शेयर करेंगे। इस वक्त मैं शहर नौ काबुल में खड़ा हुआ हूँ और काबुल का दिल इसे कह सकते हैं आप। इस तरफ भी आप देख लें और थोड़ा सा अगर आप पैन करें काबुल की, सिर्फ आप ट्रैफिक इस वक्त देख लें कि क्या सिचुएशन है यहाँ पर। और अमन व अमान के हवाले से काफ़ी सारी लोगों से हमारी बात हुई है। लॉ एंड ऑर्डर की कोई यहाँ पर हमें अब तक कोई सिचुएशन नहीं आई है। लोगों से भी हम बात करेंगे, काबुल के शहरियों के क्या तासुरात हैं। और एक जो परसेप्शन ये है कि एयरपोर्ट से हज़ारों लोग जो हैं वो भाग रहे हैं, तो देखेंगे एयरपोर्ट में, हम आपको एयरपोर्ट भी लेके जाएंगे। लेकिन आज आपके लिए एक खुसूसी एक्सक्लूसिव इंटरव्यू लेके आ रहे हैं और वो इंटरव्यू है साबिक सफ़ीर, जो कि पाकिस्तान में साबिक अफ़गान सफ़ीर थे, साबिक वज़ीर ख़जाना वो रह चुके हैं और पाकिस्तान के लिए खुसूसी एलची भी रह चुके हैं। और इस वक्त उनकी रेलेवेंस इसलिए ज़्यादा है कि हामिद करज़ई साहब ने तालिबान के साथ रिकन्सिलिएशन और मुज़ाकरात के लिए जो कमेटी बनाई है, हिकमत यार साहब और अब्दुल्ला समेत, उनमें वो भी शामिल हैं। जी बिल्कुल, डॉक्टर उमर ज़ाखिलवाल साहब की बात कर रहे हैं। ही इज़ बीन काइंड इनफ, 2 दफ़ा वो मैसेज भी कर चुके हैं मुझे कि आप जल्दी पहुँचें। तो यहाँ से उनका घर जो है वो 2-3 मिनट की वॉकिंग डिस्टेंस पे है। तो हम आपको अभी लिए चलेंगे, डॉक्टर साहब से आज तफसीली गुफ्तगू करेंगे, क्योंकि डॉक्टर ज़ाखिलवाल साहब जो हैं वो पंजशेर में मसालेहत करवा रहे हैं अहमद शाह मसूद और तालिबान के दरमियान। उनसे पूछेंगे क्या हो रहा है। दूसरा, उनके तालिबान से मुज़ाकरात इस वक्त चल रहे हैं, इंक्लूसिव गवर्नमेंट कहाँ तक पहुँची। कल तालिबान के बड़े अहम वक्त ने डॉक्टर उमर ज़ाखिलवाल से मुलाकात भी की। तो हमारे साथ रहिएगा। काबुल तो आज ही पहुँचे हैं, 2-3 दिनों में काबुल का कोना कोना डॉन न्यूज़ पर लाइव विद आदिल शाहजेब में इंशाल्लाह आपके साथ होंगे। ये देखिए ट्रैफिक वाला देख लीजिए, निज़ाम उसी तरह है, चल रहा है, लोग हैं, ये पुलिस वाले हैं। अस्सलाम वालेकुम सरंगी तस्खी ठीक ठाक ही, खैर खैरियत पे ठीक ठाक बिल्कुल। तो काबुल इज़ नॉर्मल राइट नाउ और उस पर हम बिल्कुल आपसे तफसीली गुफ्तगू भी करेंगे। लॉ एंड ऑर्डर के बड़े लोग कहते हैं मसले मसाइल हैं, ख़वातीन भी मैंने यहाँ पर देखी हैं। ऑल्दो आज हमारे पास इतना टाइम नहीं है कि बहुत सारी चीज़ों पे हम बात कर सकें, तो थोड़ी देर में आपको लिए चलते हैं डॉक्टर उमर ज़ाखिलवाल के घर, वहाँ पे मुलाकात होगी। फ़िलहाल हमें यहाँ से जा गई। इस वक्त मैं डॉक्टर उमर ज़ाखिलवाल के घर के बिल्कुल सामने खड़ा हूँ और डॉक्टर साहब के 2 दफ़ा मैसेज आ चुके हैं कि मैं आपका इंतज़ार कर रहा हूँ। थोड़ा सा पैन करके दिखाएं। यहाँ पे कोई सिक्योरिटी आपको नज़र नहीं आ रही, ना कोई हमें तालिबान इधर नज़र आ रहे हैं। ये डॉक्टर साहब एक्स फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर रह चुके हैं, बड़ी सियासी शख्सियत हैं अफ़गानिस्तान की, और करज़ई साहब ने जो कमेटी बनाई है तालिबान और रिकन्सिलिएशन के लिए, उसका हिस्सा है अब्दुल्ला के साथ, हिकमत यार साहब के साथ। तो अभी चलते हैं डॉक्टर साहब के पास। सर इस वक्त हम अंदर जा रहे हैं। डॉक्टर साहब उमर ज़ाखिलवाल साहब हमारा इंतज़ार कर रहे हैं, तो उनसे थोड़ी देर में इंशाल्लाह हम इंटरव्यू शुरू करते हैं। बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग इंटरव्यू होगा, हमारे साथ रहिएगा। एक छोटी सी ब्रेक ले लेते हैं। थैंक यू। जी नाज़रीन, इस वक्त हम मौजूद हैं डॉक्टर उमर ज़ाखिलवाल साहब के साथ और इनका इंट्रोडक्शन जो है किसी तारुफ के मुताज नहीं है। अफगानिस्तान में अगर मैं ये कहूँ कि वन ऑफ द मोस्ट पॉपुलर एम्बेसडर्स ऑफ अफगानिस्तान इन इस्लामाबाद, अभी तक हम याद करते हैं ज़ाखिलवाल साहब को, और यहाँ अफगानिस्तान निजात हरकती के नाम से इनकी अपनी सियासी जमात भी है। और इस वक्त अहमियत डॉक्टर साहब की इसमें है कि जो हामिद करजई साहब ने एक रिकन्सिलिएशन के लिए कमेटी बनाई थी तालिबान के साथ मुज़ाकरात के लिए, उसमें डॉक्टर साहब शामिल हैं और तालिबान का एक डेलीगेशन कल उन्हें मिलने आया। और उसके अलावा जो है इनकी करजई साहब और अब्दुल्ला साहब से भी मुलाकातें भी हैं। तो इनसे ये सारे सवालात इनके सामने रखेंगे। और सबसे पहले तो ये कि हम तो इंटरनेशनल मीडिया जो पोर्ट्रे कर रहा है कि जी अफगानिस्तान से सारे लोग भाग रहे हैं। डॉक्टर साहब के बारे में ये बताऊं कि जब ये रिजीम चेंज अफगानिस्तान में हुआ, जब तालिबान ने पूरे अफगानिस्तान को कंट्रोल कर लिया, तो डॉक्टर साहब एक दौरे पे जो पहले से तयशुदा था बाहर गए हुए थे। कंट्रोल जब तालिबान का हो गया ये वापस आ गए। तो आज भी जैसे मुझसे मिले तो मैंने कहा कि डॉक्टर साहब लोग यहाँ से जा रहे हैं, आप वापस आ गए। डॉक्टर उमर ज़ाखिलवाल साहब डेरा मनना सफ़ी साहब सासो वक्त मुरा के अवल खुराकतावी डॉक्टर साहब चे कर्जी साहब यो मुहिमा कमेटी जोड़ा का आगे की अब्दुल्ला साहब डॉक्टर साहब उमदे और गुलबदीन हिकमतियार साहब उमदे तासो हम पके यही नो आगा नतीजे ता वरसेदा सुमरा दगदी वरसरा बज उर्दू के दा पुख्तना द खपल व्यूअर द पारो कम लिया तासो जवाब। डॉक्टर साहब बहुत शुक्रिया।
जवाब इंग्लिशी के पख्तो के
पख्तो ज्यादा सही का इंग्लिशी का वही पख्तो सही था। डॉक्टर साहब ये बताइएगा कि हामिद करजई साहब ने कमेटी बनाई, अचानक तालिबान ने टेक ओवर कर लिया। अब उस कमेटी में गुलबदीन हिकमतियार साहब भी हैं, डॉक्टर साहब अब्दुल्ला भी हैं, आप भी हैं। चार आप ऐसे लोग हैं कि जो अफगानिस्तान में जिन्हें कंट्रोवर्शियल नहीं समझा जाता। तालिबान के साथ आप लोगों के मुज़ाकरात भी हो रहे हैं। अफगानिस्तान के अवाम वेट कर रहे हैं कि कब इंक्लूसिव गवर्नमेंट बनेगी, उसमें मुश्किलात क्या हैं, और तालिबान के साथ आपके कल भी मुज़ाकरात हुए, क्या हमें बताइएगा कि क्या हो रहा है।
لومړی دا چې ستاسې لیدونکو ته د زړه له کومې سلامونه. په افغانستان کې تحولات او تغییرات ډېر اچانک او یو ناڅاپي توګه راغله او ډېر ستر د نظام تغییر یا د نظام سقوط ډېره وړه خبره نه ده. نو دا توقع کېدی شي چې په دې یو هفته کې دننه دې مونږ ډېر څه په سیاسي فرنټ باندې پیشرفت انتظار ونه لرو، مګر دا د شکر ځای دی چې حد اقل د امن یو فضا شته، حد اقل د بحث او د لیدلو د طالبانو د مشرتابه سره او د نورو سیاسیونو سره او د نظریاتو د اوریدلو یو فضا شته. تر اوسه پورې کومې خبرې چې د طالبانو او غیر طالبانو مشرانو ترمنځ په کابل کې شوي، هغه چې دلته دي پاتې شوي دي، لکه تاسو چې اشاره ورته وکړه زه یوازې 2 ورځې کېږي چې راغلی یم، هغه اضافتر هغې ته مذاکرات نه شو ویلی، هغه تبادل د نظر دی، هغه اضافتر شناخت د موقفونو او د یو بل دی چې دا ډېر مهم دی، دا ډېر مهم دی. مګر اړتیا شته یو سیاسي مذاکراتو ته، اړتیا شته یو داسې حکومت ته، دلته آغاز د داسې حکومت ته چې هغه په یو سیاسي جوړجاړي په نتیجه کې راغلی اوسي، چې هغه کې نه تنها طالبان چې طبعا دلته راغلي دي او د نظامي لارې دوی پخواني حکومت ته سقوط ورکړ، مګر د نظامي لارې حکومت جوړېدل په افغانستان کې پایداري نه ده لرلې. اوس نو سیاسي مصلحت او سیاسي مذاکراتو اړتیا شته چې د سیاسي مذاکراتو په نتیجه کې حکومت جوړ شي. هغه حکومت به پایداري ولري، هغه حکومت به داسې حکومت وي چې همه شموله به اوسي، په هغې کې به ډېرې څېرې غیر د طالب نه د نورو څېرې هم ښکاري شي، او هغه حکومت به نړیوال مشروعیت او نړیوال په رسمیت پېژندنه چې ډېره اهمه ده هغه به ولري. زه ورته هیله مند یم، د طالبانو ذهن ورته آماده وینم، ځکه طالبانو ذهن هغه په دې برداشت دي. دا تېر 40 کاله په نظر کې نیولو سره کافي نظامونه حکومتونه راغله، مګر هغه اشتباهات کړي. یا اشتباهات دا دی چې هر څوک راغلي او قدرت نیولې فکر کړی چې په ځان ته ځان باندې کولی شي مګر هغه څو کاله وروسته سقوط سره مخ شوی طالبان هم یو ځل راغله حکومت یې لرلو بیا حکومت یې سقوط سره مخ شو دا اوسنی حکومت یوازې دا چې سقوط شو یوازې طالب پکې نه و مګر بیا هم نیمګړی و بیا هم د دوام پیدا نه کړ نو د دې نه مخکې چې موږ روان یو اساس ته داسې حکومت ایښودل پکار دي چې پخوانۍ تېروتنې پکې تکرار نه شي او داسې حکومت وي چې په هغې کې پایداره صلح او ثبات واوسي.
سمه ده ډاکټر صاحب ډېره مننه. اول خو
په اردو کې زه پوهېږم که ضرور دی که پښتو کې
ښه بس سمه ده زه به اردو کې کوم زه وایم جواب تاسو انګلیسي کې ځکه ورکوئ چې ګلوبل ऑडियंस पे डॉन तासु तो पता था इंटरनेशनल डॉक्टर साहब बहुत शुक्रिया आपने बड़ी तफसील से हमें बताया. तो एक तो ये कि तालिबान में क्या आपको विलिंगनेस भी नजर आ रही है? आप जो अफगानिस्तान की टॉप टियर लीडरशिप पॉलिटिकल समझे जाते हैं, करजई साहब, हिकमतयार साहब, आप हो गए, डॉक्टर साहब अब्दुल्ला हो गए, और आप ये कह रहे हैं कि हम इसको अभी तक मुज़ाकरात नहीं कह सकते, शायद एक ट्रस्ट डेफिसिट भी ख़त्म हो रहा है, ये सारी चीज़ें तो हो रही हैं, लेकिन क्या आप समझते हैं कि तालिबान विलिंग हैं आप जैसे लोगों को शामिल करने में? क्योंकि 4 आप लोग ऐसे हैं, अगर ये शामिल हो जाएं तो पूरा अफगानिस्तान ही पूरी दुनिया कहेगी कि ये इंक्लूसिव हुकूमत है.
First of all, we've been interacting with Taliban not just past 2 days, past 1 week. We've been interacting with them for past many years. So we are acquainted and aware of the Taliban's position, willingness to share, willingness to be part of a more inclusive setup, and that willingness continues to be there. That willingness.
So you see that willingness.
Why do I see it? I see it because the past 40 years have shown us that if that inclusivity is not there, sustainability of a setup will not be there. For the sustainability of the setup, for durable peace, it's important to be inclusive. That we see, no doubt about it. Secondly, inclusivity would not mean that the Taliban invite a few faces, even if it's me or President Karzai or somebody else, and it became inclusive. No, that will not be enough. Inclusivity will have to have a process that's accepted by everybody, and that includes a broader political negotiation. It's not just Zakhilwal, President Karzai, Dr. Abdullah, or Hikmatyar. There is other political leadership as well, which is not in the country, that needs to be included.
Does that include former President Ashraf Ghani as well?
I don't think it includes former president. He ran away. He doesn't have much of a root in this country. He is now the most unpopular figure in this country. He's done with. But no, there are others who are relevant and whose inclusivity in talks and whose inclusivity in the future setup of the government will be absolutely important.
अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब ये बताइएगा, ये तो होना इसी तरह चाहिए, लेकिन बड़ी एक आइडियल सिचुएशन आप बता रहे हैं, लेकिन तालिबान 20 साल लड़े हैं, तो अगर वो इस वक्त ये कह दें कि जी इंक्लूसिव गवर्नमेंट का हमारे पास हज़ारा तालिब भी है, ताजिक तालिब भी है, उज़्बेक ताजिक भी है, तो क्यों ऐसी सोच हो सकता है पाई जाए तालिबान में, फिर क्या होगा? डेडलॉक और बात.
I tell you, we must hold the Taliban to their word. The 20 years that you refer to, they will tell you they fought for 2 purposes. One, they fought for the foreign forces to leave Afghanistan, and they left. And they fought for the restoration of an Islamic government, with which nobody agrees. But of course, the details matter. So those are the 2 purposes. They haven't said that we are fighting, that we are at the helm of the power, that the Taliban are in control. Yes, of course, they would have the desire to be after now taking sort of control of the power and all that. The desire is certainly there, and it's understood, and it will significantly be present there. But they also understand, as they understood from the previous time, they had a government here, but it was not recognized by the international community. It was secluded. Afghanistan was not part of the world.
Right.
Now, after 30 years, which Afghanistan has become an integrated part of the world, Taliban cannot ignore that. That we have an educated elite way broader, that we had economic opportunities, that we had jobs, that we now have buildings, that we now are connected to the rest of the world through this social media and through internet and all that. It's a different Afghanistan. And the requirements are different. And the requirements are that, yes, Taliban are a reality of this country. They will have to be significantly in power and all that, but it's also to the benefit of the Taliban to open up, and I see that openness there, to allow not only others to be part of the government, but from the very start, they have to be part of the process, and then whatever agreement have, they have to be part of the decision making in this country.
अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब, लेकिन ये वाली बातचीत, ये जो बातें हैं, ऑब्वियसली ये तालिबान के सामने आपने भी रखी हैं, करज़ई साहब ने भी रखी हैं, हिकमतयार साहब ने भी रखी हैं, अब्दुल्ला साहब ने भी रखी हैं, आगे क्यों नहीं जा रही है बात? ये
well, I told you in the beginning, it is a huge thing. It's only about a week since the Taliban captured Kabul, and the Taliban did not expect. The Taliban leadership, even in this 1 week, has not come together to one place. The leadership council is not in one place. We don't even know who is where. Some are in Kandahar, some are in Kabul, some might be in other provinces, some are in Doha, some have moved into here. So we need to be patient, but at the same time we know that there is enormous uncertainty on the streets in Kabul. You must have noticed that.
Yes.
There is enormous economic pressure.
Not just Kabul. I've been to Jalalabad.
I was also. It was the same. So
yeah.
So I was in Jalalabad as well. So there is enormous economic pressure as well. Afghanistan, we have a foreign aid dependent country, and also a trade dependent country. The flow of trade, the flow of businesses. If you go outside and you see, the businesses look dead. You know, if you look to the shops, you will not. So that needs to change. We need to come back to normalcy as soon as possible, and what that puts the pressure primarily on the Taliban, but also on other political leadership in this country to come together quickly and move towards a political settlement that will have international recognition, that will unlock the international assistance to this country so that this country can breathe again.
ठीक. अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब, दूसरा ये बताइए कि एवेक्यूएशन जो 31 अगस्त तक है, तालिबान कह रहे हैं उसके बाद हम नहीं एक्सेप्ट करेंगे, और इंटरनेशनल फोर्स यूएस है, यूके है, फ्रांस है, वो कह रहे हैं कि हम इसको एक्सटेंड करना चाह रहे हैं. मेरे ख्याल है ये एक बड़ा प्रॉब्लम हमें 2-3 दिनों में नजर आएगा. ये एवेक्यूएशन जरूरी है?
No. You see, I was a former finance minister of this country. I was the special envoy of the President of Pakistan, an ambassador. I was the chief economic advisor. I was the national economic advisor. If I don't fear Taliban, and I returned the first week, I mean, with so much uncertainty, I traveled by road all the way to Kabul, and I don't fear.
And let me say this again, कि डॉक्टर साहब बाहर थे जब तालिबान ने कंट्रोल हासिल किया. डॉक्टर साहब बड़े हार्श क्रिटिक रहे हैं तालिबान के, लेकिन जब तालिबान ने कंट्रोल हासिल कर लिया, डॉक्टर साहब उन चंद शायद वाहिद रहनुमा हैं जो कि वापस आ गए. सो फार पॉलिटिकल जो बड़े फिगर्स समझे जाते हैं. यू कैरी ऑन.
So if I and I today I walk from home to this office on foot. Yesterday I walked without guards, without anybody throughout the city. And my house, the day I arrived, there were about 300 Taliban with leaders in the regular. They visited me in my house, had very big meetings, a very cordial meeting, a very frank meeting. And since then, leaders of Taliban, the commanders of Taliban visit me at home. We exchange views, we discuss, we have very frank discussion. I have a very frank interview with you. Some is very good, direct, probably against the thinking of some of Taliban leaders. I had a very, very frank interview on Tolo TV, exclusive interview yesterday, interview on BBC, very frank one, on Radio Azadi, a very frank one. So if I don't feel threatened, why these thousands of youngsters?
वजह फिर क्या है, क्यों ये जा रहे हैं?
Well, look, there's a perception about Taliban, no doubt about it. That perception is very scary. There's been 20 years of war, no doubt. The Taliban were fighting a war, and in Pashto we say, in war people don't distribute sweets. So they have inflicted damages on people, they've inflicted damages on property, and there is a propaganda component in that as well. The Taliban are presented as a pariah, and extremely scary, dreadful. In some of these people who are at the airport, they have real fear. And that's why it falls on people such as me to return to show to them that do not fear. It also falls on the Taliban to show that they must not be feared.
But have they so far?
Let me see. Yes, I'll tell you. And then there are opportunists as well. I know that we have a dire economic situation. A lot of youngsters would want to take advantage of this opportunity, go to the West for better opportunities. That possibility is there as well. I had an interview on TV on Toloy. Since my return, there are hundreds and hundreds of Afghans who are outside the country. They say, and they say, look, after we saw you, we want to return as well. Yesterday, and I want you to interview this individual as well.
Yes.
Let's organize this. There is an individual who is scheduled to fly out in 30 minutes. And he watches my interview on his mobile. And he has a paper in his hand, and he tells the Americans, look, I'm not leaving. It takes him 10 hours to get out of the airport. And his brother came today and he says, my brother, after watching your interview, he was, in 30 minutes, he was to fly out. He said, no, I'm not going to leave this country. This is what it takes. I hope that the youngsters here, those who've left, they will come back. This is our country. This is Taliban's country, but this is also our country. We are also the owners. We must be here. We have rights. We have responsibilities. Right now is our responsibility. But we will also be seeking the rights in the future of this country very bravely, very candidly, and I'm sure that we will have a setup that will be inclusive. We will have a setup that will have the requirement for international recognition, and that we will have a setup on which we can build sustainable peace and stability.
अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब, पंशेर की तरफ भी मैं आता हूँ, क्योंकि पता है कि आप एक मसालती किरदार भी उसमें अदा कर रहे हैं, पंशेर के उलमा के साथ भी, अहमद शाह मसूद की फैमिली के साथ भी, और हुकूमत के साथ भी। लेकिन उससे पहले मुझे ये बताइएगा कि जलालाबाद में तो मैं 2 दिन रहा, लोग क्या सोच रहे हैं, कैमरे पे उनको लेके आए, तालिबान से भी बात की। ओवरऑल काबुल में लोग क्या सोच रहे हैं, और क्या एक ये भी कोई कह रहा है तालिबान बदल गए हैं, बट देन वी सी इंटरनेशनल मीडिया नहीं जी, तालिबान हैवंट चेंज्ड। आप क्या समझते हैं?
Look, one is what they see now. What they see now is the Taliban certainly don't bother, right? Others.
So certainly Taliban have changed.
Now listen, let me come to it. I have to be extremely fair as to the Taliban right now have come and they haven't inflicted any harm to anybody. Yes, there are incidents here and there. Today, somebody came to me and said that his vehicle was confiscated. It's not good, but it could have been, I told her, it could have been something bigger, you know? You could be fearing for your life, and that you are not. It's only a vehicle now we are discussing. We'll be discussing with the Taliban who will release that vehicle. So those sorts of stuff we hear. People's houses confiscated here, they're particular of their political leadership. I hear that. That must change. For example, some political leaders such as Mr. Qanuni or Mr. Ahmad Wali, who were in Islamabad, I met them there. Their houses have been taken over. I'm sure that they will leave them, will call on the Taliban that they don't do that, because that doesn't build trust, no doubt. But these are smaller incidents compared to the bigger picture that in a city, in a capital where 7 million people, and the Taliban took over, no violence, no looting, and there's no subsequent reprisal. But the question on people's mind is, will Taliban remain that way in the future? That's one. Second, yes, it's one thing to say that the Taliban do not harm them. It's another thing that in the future we will have a government in which we will be connected to the rest of the world. We will have a government, when we have a government in which there are economic opportunities and jobs, that become important. When we have a government in which the citizens of this country have the rights of citizens, and to which they can claim ownership to the state as well. And those are the important questions. And these are political questions, and that's what the political process will have to produce so that that uncertainty is taken away.
ठीक. अच्छा, ये जो अनसर्टेनिटी की आप डॉक्टर साहब बात कर रहे हैं, तो हम क्या कोई इसकी टाइमलाइन दे सकते हैं या जाती होगा टाइमलाइन? जी,
I'll tell you. My own timeline is within a month we must have a settlement. Within a week we must start negotiations. We don't have a lot of time because the economic crisis is coming like a time bomb. With uncertainty, with the cessation of the flow of foreign aid, there will be some real crisis in this country. And that is going to make it extremely difficult then for a political maneuvering. And that is something that probably is not as much understood by the Taliban as is understood by somebody, me as an economist, as former finance minister. I can see that coming, and coming very quickly. And that's why, since yesterday, I'm in talk with ambassadors, with many ambassadors, foreign ambassadors, including friends in the US, in UK, UN, in all these countries, to not conditionalize humanitarian assistance on political developments here. They must act quickly. The UN must act quickly. The US must get active on the ground here and deliver humanitarian assistance, because outside what I see is this past 1-2 months of war and falling of districts and has produced a lot of internally displaced people, and a lot of them are vulnerable. You do not need to go far. Just go to the Shahrinau Park, which is only about 100 meters, and you will see families, over 1,000 families, just lying there.
Internally displaced people.
They need assistance. They need assistance immediately, and so we're already in talks on that. But we must now also move quickly on the political setup so that the certainty comes, and that engagement with the international community becomes sort of known and formalized, so that the flow of aid from the outside becomes channeled and they start.
डॉक्टर साहब, पंशेर की बात करेंगे, क्या सिचुएशन है? मुख्तलिफ खबरें आ रही हैं। अहमद शाह मसूद के बेटे का अभी वो क्या कह रहा है? वो रेजिस्ट करना चाह रहा है या नहीं? क्योंकि अहमद वली मसूद से मैंने इंटरव्यू किया इस्लामाबाद में, और उन्होंने कहा कि अहमद शाह मसूद का बेटा और उनका सन इन लॉ वो रेजिस्ट नहीं करना चाहता. He has nothing to do with Amrullah Saleh if there is inclusive government in Afghanistan. लेकिन तालिबान की फोर्सेस पहुंच चुकी हैं, लड़ाई झड़पें भी हुई हैं, आप मसालती किरदार उसमें अदा कर रहे हैं, क्या हो रहा है?
The day before yesterday, meeting with the Taliban, my advice is not to use force. We know the friends in Panjshir, they wouldn't want to have war. If you go to Panjshir, it's a beautiful province, a beautiful valley. A lot of development work has taken place. I was there only 3 weeks ago before my departure outside. I was in Panjshir with all these colleagues. We had the best of time and all that. Panjshir must not get destroyed. And my advice to the Taliban, day before yesterday, they agreed they would halt. If negotiation fails once, we will still have to try. If it fails twice, we still have to try. I'm not for any force there. The Ahmad Massoud's position is quite clear that he wants to be part of political talks and political settlement, and that is right. Let's accommodate him. His uncle, who is also his father-in-law, he has said so. And the rest of the Panjshiri leaders, including Dr. Abdullah, is very active in this. The Panjshiri, the elders from Panjshir are extremely active in this. So we will work with them. whatever, if we could do any mediation, we'll be open to that, to play our role and get a peaceful settlement. Particularly, you see, it all depends on what the view is in Kabul, or for Kabul, or for the national government. If the view is to be inclusive, if the view is to not monopolize, if the view is to come to a political settlement, then Panjshir is not another country. Panjshir is part of here.
Absolutely.
And Panjshir will be included in that and all that. So I don't see rush for that. And I'm pretty confident that Taliban will not use force and rather negotiations.
That's good to know. अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब ये बताइएगा, अशरफ गनी साहब की बात करते हैं। जब तक वो प्रेसिडेंट थे तो हमें पता है कि इवन आखिरी दिन तक उन्हें ये कम्युनिकेट करवाया गया कि देखें एक पॉलिटिकल ट्रांजिशन हो जाएगी, बैठ जाएं तालिबान और आप रिजाइन कर दें, लेकिन उन्होंने जाने को तरजीह दिया। पीछे कोई ट्रांजिशन प्लान नहीं था, अपने बहुत सारे दोस्तों को भी वो पीछे छोड़ गए। वजह क्या थी? और दूसरा ये कि मैं, चूंकि आपको बड़ा एक क्रेडिबल पॉलिटिशियन अफगानिस्तान का माना जाता है, ये भी कहा गया कि जी वो कोई $170 मिलियन साथ में ले गए और ये पूरा, तो क्या आपकी क्या टेक है?
I don't know. I need to know, see facts before I say definitively yes, this is true, this is not true. What is true is that he mismanaged. He mismanaged the government. He mismanaged the peace process. He is solely responsible, or primarily responsible, for the collapse of the state. He is responsible for whatever we have right now, but he's history now. Let's history judge him, and I don't believe the history will be kind to him. Right now is I want to be forward-looking. I want to be forward-looking, not backward-looking. And the forward-lookingness is right now, how do we take that situation and make something good out of it? And let's say use this as an opportunity that we now have a clean slate. Maybe we can lay some foundation that is stronger than before, so that we have a state, that we have a government that is more capable, that is more accepted, that is more sort of guardian of peace and stability in this country, and that's what my focus is right now.
ठीक। अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब, आखिर में आपसे पूछेंगे कि इस पूरा जो आपने एक सिनारियो बताया, एक अनसर्टेनिटी तो है क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट नहीं है, एक इंक्लूसिव गवर्नमेंट आनी चाहिए, उसके लिए मुज़ाकरात हो भी रहे हैं और वो आगे भी बढ़ने चाहिए। अच्छी बात आपने ये की कि पंजशेर में यू आर वेरी कॉन्फिडेंट कि तालिबान जो हैं वो फोर्स भी यूज़ नहीं करेंगे, लेकिन इस पूरी सिचुएशन में जो रीजनल ममालिक हैं उनका किरदार, खुसूसन पाकिस्तान का किरदार, जितना पाकिस्तान किरदार अदा कर सकता था, अचानक यहाँ पर गनी रिजीम के कोलैप्स करने के बाद वो हमारे सामने है। अब कैसा किरदार आप देख रहे हैं कि पाकिस्तान ने ये जो 10-12 दिनों में किया, क्या किरदार?
I'll tell you, I'm sure that Pakistan was as much surprised as everybody else was by the sudden collapse, and I would believe that Pakistan should be also very concerned about the possibility of this opportunity falling apart. Because if, God forbids, we don't get it right, and we go towards the direction in which there is chaos in this country, whether it's economic or political, then the prime victims of that will be Afghans. And right after is going to be Pakistan.
Yes.
And Pakistan needs to view stability and peace in Afghanistan in the context of its own national interest, not just doing a favor to the Afghans, but in the context of its national interest. We are in interaction with Pakistani leadership, no doubt about it. They understand that, and we are seeking the support for peace and stability moving forward, and in such a way that the current fear and concerns are gone, that normalcy comes back to this country, that with the whole prosperity comes back to the country, and that would also ensure the closest possible cordial relations. That is to the benefit of both countries, economically, security-wise, and every otherwise. So that will happen. And Pakistan's role is very critical, extremely way more critical now than it was before. And I hope, and I'm also positive that Pakistan will rise to that occasion and play that role. That will give us peace and stability.
अच्छा डॉक्टर साहब, इसमें ये कि जितना क्लोज इंटरेक्शन पाकिस्तानी लीडरशिप के साथ हमारा हुआ पिछले 10-12 दिनों में एज ए जर्नलिस्ट, वो तो बड़े इस पर क्लियर हैं कि जी पीस एंड स्टेबिलिटी इन अफगानिस्तान मींस पीस एंड स्टेबिलिटी इन पाकिस्तान, और यही चीज आप भी बता रहे हैं कि पाकिस्तान का रोल क्रिटिकल होना चाहिए। लेकिन हमें तो नजर आ रहा है कि क्रिटिकल पाकिस्तान को अंदाजा भी है, बल्कि बड़ा पॉजिटिव रोल पाकिस्तान ने जो है वो अभी तक प्ले भी किया है।
Well, Pakistan is, in addition to being probably, if not probably, definitely the biggest neighbor with the longest relations and interactions that we have, but it's also part of an important part of the regional countries. We do need the regional support. It's also part of the international community that will have to be active in support of peace and stability. So it can play sort of in all these different roles in position that it has, that we would want a very active, positive Pakistan in the ways ahead, in which there would be talks on, there should be talks on a political settlement here in this country, because that settlement, political settlement, will definitely be intra-Afghan, but it requires international endorsement and international support and international recognition, and in those things, Pakistan will have to play a very positive role.